and dogs and this little antelope walking down, all going fishing with me. This is Mary Hart, and I think it's Mace in the background with the antelope, petting her. She not only got fed, she got a lot of affection. You can see she's grown quite a bit here. And this was along farther in the summer. We had found her way early in April. And that building in the background there is our coal shed. That's where we put our coal when we had it hauled out for our cook stove. This is Ida, Countryman, feeding a couple, I guess, of her bum calves. Seems like we always had some bum calves out in front of her house. It must have been a warm day because she doesn't have a coat on. And this is the way her house looked when we first moved this from the south. And they had steps that went up to the attic on the outside, and then there was a doorstep there that you'd go in the kitchen, and then there was a built-on porch there. You can see the door. You could go in there, and then it was the door on the other side you could go out of. On the other side, sort of a windbreak and sort of a storage place. She finally tore all that off later in life and built her a whole different setup there. But this is the way it looked when we moved to Sweetwater. This is just a dumb little picture of things I did for fun. One time I gave my old hen a whole bunch of duck eggs instead of chicken eggs, because we had a lot of chickens, and she hatched out these 12 babies. And what's going on here is she's running around the pool screaming, "Get out of that water, you're going to drown!" This is Mark, Countryman, playing with Bert, and it looks like my dog, Vance, and Mace's dog, Laddie, is trying to kiss Bert, but I'm not too sure if he's going to let him. And Grandma Ida standing with her arms around Mace in the background watching. And wind charger only had 2 blades, and its purpose was not to pump water, it was to make the electricity. As I mentioned before, you can see the front of the cellar, how that was the way the door went down in it. It was the warmest place in the winter and the coolest place in the summer. We hid there during the lightning storms, too. This is my brother Chester, who was in the service, and he came home on a furlough, and I only got to see him once every 11 years, and this is one of the times he came home to Sweetwater to see me. And of course Penelope came up and said, "Who are you, and will you scratch my ears?" And he did. This is a picture of my sister-in-law, Marjorie, and she came out from Omaha to live with me while my youngest brother, who I'd only seen once in my life, he went off to the Navy, and he asked me if his wife could come from Omaha, from that big old city, to come out there where she'd be safe and live with me. And so I said, yeah, and Hoot brought her home. He went down there to ship cattle, and he brought her home with him. And she had 2 little boys. And then on December the 7th, about 1945, she had a baby boy on the anniversary of when the war started at my house. And then the war finally got over, and he came home, and he took his wife and 3 little kids back to Omaha. And then he managed to drown in a little bitty lake just outside of Omaha a couple of years later. This is Hoot, and he's not feeding the little antelope. He's just petting it, and that little antelope loved him dearly. Guess he thought he was Dad. He's the one that picked him up out in the prairie and brought him home. This is Hoot, and he is feeding that little antelope. Finally going to get something to eat there. And you can see our famous buildings in the background, chicken coops and such. He called that little antelope Penny, but he named it Penelope, like I said in the first place. I'd never heard that name before myself. This is myself giving Bert a ride on Penelope, and she's so concerned she's trying to see what's on the ground. And then there's another shot of the wind charger there too. Sort of a desolate looking country. You notice there's no trees that direction. That's looking towards Lander would be out that direction from our house. This is the boss, Mark Countryman, in the background, and this little Mary Hart petting Penelope, and she's glad to have all that attention. And I might tell you that this antelope would go up to the filling station, which was about a mile from our house, and she'd stand there and con the people that had that place out of anything. And the bus would come by, and the people would get out of the bus, and they'd feed her things like cigarettes. But if they had candy or anything, she'd eat anything they gave them. And everybody got so they'd stop and visit with that antelope at the Sweetwater station. And then when a great big herd of antelope came and started living around us, she got so she'd run with them. And then when they got spooked and went running off across the field, they'd leap over the fence or under it. Most of the time they crawled under it. And she'd get to the fence and wonder what happened, and she'd come back home because she never did learn to go under the fence. And when the men went down to the field and they opened the gate to go through, the dogs all followed, so did Penny. She'd go down in the field with them. And so she got to be, that's how spoiled she got to be. And then the first day of antelope season came when she was a year old. And we knew that she'd be in danger, so we put a big red bow around her neck. And went off to work, and pretty soon he came back about 30 minutes after he'd left, and he gave me the head of that antelope and her ribbon. Somebody had right on our place, not a half mile from our house, got away with our Penny. Oh. And that's the end of this sad story. This is Marvin Hart, and visiting at Grandma Ida's, and you will see what he's been doing. That's the kind of fish he got out of the Sweetwater. He came up almost every summer and spent all summer months with Grandma, and like most of the other grandchildren did. And he spent a lot of time at our house, too. This is the Countryman twins that had gone off to Salt Lake, and they were secretaries at the city-county building. And the one in the dark suit married Donald Caffel, and that's Annie, and then Virginia in the light suit married Ellis Bingham, and they all were living in Salt Lake, still working there. And they were trying to dress differently and look differently, I suppose, so their husbands would know which was which. That's a joke. But if you look at their feet, they both wear the same shoes still, just alike. And they came home for 2 weeks in the summer, and then Mammy and I would drive them back to Rollins and put them on a bus and send them home. This is a good up-close picture of them. I don't know if you can tell whether or not, but they were like all Countrymen, had those big blue eyes. This is Manuel Countryman when he was about 20 years old, 21 years old, and he gave me this picture. And he was living at Low Wind River still, near Fort Washington. It's a carnival picture. This is just a newspaper article about a wedding. This is Mace's birth announcement. This is the inside of the card giving the vital statistics. This is Bessie sitting out in the yard, and Mace is doing his favorite thing, taking a picture of his mother. And we had moved to Hudson for him to go to school because when he was 11, we was living with his grandfather, Corner, and taking care of him, but he died, and so the next year we had to rent a house down here. And this is where I'm posing out by that house. This was taken in 1951, and my cousin Luther Carter had come from Lilburn, Missouri. I'd never heard of him before, and he brought two brothers and a sister of my dad, and those four people had never seen each other for 50 years. And this is the day I found out there was somebody in the world besides that was my relatives besides my dad and I. And because that's all I could remember since I was little. And those in the background are those people visiting and yakking along, and I'm taking a picture of, I turned around to take a picture of George, Luther's younger brother. He was 2 years younger than me. And I turned around to take his picture, and look what he got. This is Hoot on his old horse Pedro, and out in the prairie punching cows. I'm not sure of the landscape there, so I'm not going to try and tell you where it is. It's been so long since I took it. This is just a picture of an artist deep in thought, wondering what is it I'd better be painting next. You can't tell it, but he's sitting on the sofa in front of the tapestry in the front room. This is just some carnival pictures that we took the same 4th of July that Mammy and I had taken our pictures together with, and traded one of them off for that little Indian one that was on this same tape before. This is just another shot at that carnival, and it looks to me like who's trying to back out of the picture. Previously, we did parts of this Thanksgiving dinner of Dorothy and Margaret, and we didn't get them all together, but this is a shot of Mace and Beth at the same Thanksgiving dinner, and this was 4 days after their, 4 days, yeah, they had been married 4 days, and this was our Thanksgiving dinner, and she looks at him with adoration. The shirt he has on is black velvet, and it's got white pearl snaps on it. And he always, I made all his shirts because for a neck size and his shoulders, he had to have a 15.5 shirt, and his waist was 23 inches around the waist. So I had to make all his shirts. This is another member of the family who was at that 1956 Thanksgiving, little Mary Hart, and she was always so cheerful and happy and laughing. She was just about 9 months younger than Mace was. This is also at Thanksgiving Day dinner, and that's Dorothy's youngest son, Gary, and his wife, Jean, and their oldest son. This is the one we did a little bit earlier, but we like it so well we stuck it in here so you could see that she was the one that was serving this big dinner. And this is a picture of that Thanksgiving Day, 1956, and Hoot sitting there thoughtfully